Why was she missing shots she could have made blindfolded? The morning sun stretched across the rifle range at Fort Sterling, its light turning the sand into a pale shimmer, almost blinding. The air carried that dry desert chill that stung the skin before the heat came in full. She lay prone, cheek pressed against the worn stock of the M24 sniper rifle. Steady hands, steady breath, steady lie. "Here comes Deadeye Blackwood," Sergeant Derek Lawson muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. The laughter came like a wave, sharp, cutting, merciless. Phones came out of pockets. The daily ritual was about to begin. Zara Blackwood missing another shot. She didn't flinch, didn't look up, didn't let them see the small knot of anger twisting in her chest, because every miss was intentional. The first shot cracked across the range, echoing off the walls of the valley. The bullet struck the dirt, a good 18 inches below the target. Gasps, laughter, and Derek's mocking voice followed like smoke after fire. "Classic Blackwood," he crowed to his audience. "She's got the trigger discipline of a stormtrooper." The trainees around him chuckled, some out of cruelty, others just relieved it wasn't them on the firing line. Zara exhaled slowly. In her scope, she wasn't seeing just a black circle on white paper 300 meters away. She was seeing through it, past it. 3 weeks of calculated misses. 3 weeks of quiet humiliation and every single shot a lie, because Zara Blackwood wasn't who they thought she was. She had been the ghost of Cunor, a name whispered in desert winds across 3 continents. A sniper so precise, so silent, that entire cells of men with rifles and vengeance in their hearts went to the ground before they even saw her shadow. But here she was the worst shot in Fort Sterling's history. Or at least, that's what they believed. $20 says she doesn't even hit the target. Corporal Emma Walsh chimed in, Derek's eager shadow. "You're on," Derek replied. Phone already up. Recording. Zara adjusted her scope, hands deliberate but never clumsy. She'd learned long ago that the smallest movement could tell the truth if you weren't careful. A second shot. A miss. 2 feet to the left. More whispers, more phones, and across the range. "From the observation tower, Captain." Nathan Cross watched her like a man studying an unsolved riddle. He had been for 2 weeks now. Something about Zara Blackwood didn't add up. She moved like a veteran. Her kit was laid out like someone who understood that one misplaced tool could cost a life. Her breathing, her posture, her very stillness, they weren't the habits of a beginner fumbling her way through training. She looked like someone holding something back, but why? Master Sergeant Victoria Reed, the instructor running the range, wasn't blind either. She'd been training shooters for years, seen every kind of soldier walk through her program. Some cracked under pressure, some froze, some just didn't have the touch, but Zara? Her fundamentals were flawless. Her results were trash. Reed crouched beside her after the third shot. Voice low. "Your technique's good, Blackwood. What's happening when you pull the trigger?" Zara looked up with that perfect mask. The frustration that seemed real. The tremor in her voice that sounded like defeat. "I don't know, Sergeant," she murmured. "I follow every step, but the bullets keep going wide. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this." A lie layered in a lie. Reed frowned, studying the details. The way Zara's hands never shook. The way her breath stayed calm even as she acted flustered. Something was off. Derek didn't see any of this. Derek didn't look for details. Derek only saw failure and turned it into content. "Look at her stance," he jeered to the phone, voice booming over the range. Textbook form for missing spectacularly. Another wave of laughter. Phones caught every grimace, every shake of Zara's head, every piece of what they thought was proof. Zara just kept shooting, missing, pretending, because blending in meant being overlooked, and for 3 years, that was all she wanted. That night, she cleaned her rifle the same way she'd always done, precise, mechanical, almost tender, not because it needed cleaning, because rituals like this calmed her mind. The barracks were quiet, just the hum of the heater and the occasional clatter of boots in the hallway. Zara stripped the weapon, ran the oiled cloth along its barrel. Her M24 standard issue, unremarkable, not like the rifle she buried in a desert halfway across the world. The one that had made her a myth. She'd told herself this was the plan. Miss until she washed out. Ask for a transfer to some support unit where no one looked twice. Hide in plain sight. But Derek Lawson's phone, his videos, his mocking voice was turning her into a spectacle, and spectacles were dangerous. Day 18, Derek was at it again, phone in hand, streaming his morning updates from the mess hall. Day 18 of documenting military mediocrity, he said to the lens, eyes flicking toward Zara, who sat alone at a corner table. She always sat alone. It wasn't loneliness. It was strategy, because questions led to conversations. Conversations led to curiosity, and curiosity could get her killed. Derek saw it differently. Notice how even the other washouts won't sit with her? He narrated, loud enough for everyone to hear. Laughter, always laughter. But Captain Cross wasn't laughing, and Master Sergeant Reed was watching, too. The way good instructors watch when something feels wrong in their gut. Something was happening. Here, something bigger than bad shooting. Something Zara hadn't told anyone, not yet. How long could she keep missing before someone saw the truth? The fourth week of training opened with a sharp whistle and the smell of gun oil clinging to the cold air. The advanced marksmanship class gathered on the range, boots crunching over frost-tipped gravel. Their chatter was the same as always. Jokes, bets, the casual cruelty of people who thought they'd figured someone out. Zara lay in the dirt again, cheek pressed to the rifle. She could feel every eye on her, not because they admired her, because they were waiting for her next failure. Her finger brushed the trigger. She knew the exact pressure point, the precise ounce of force that would break the shot clean, that would send the bullet home, exactly where she wanted. But she wasn't here to hit targets. The round struck low again. A dust plume rose. Unbelievable, Derek muttered, filming from behind. His voice dripped with disgust, like every miss was an insult to the uniform they wore. She's a walking cautionary tale. The other trainees laughed, more out of habit than humor now. Phones filmed. Someone muttered that this one was going to go viral. Zara didn't react. She stayed. Still, always still, because the only thing more dangerous than being noticed was reacting when you were in the observation tower. Captain Cross didn't laugh, didn't film, he just watched. He'd seen this before, not the exact situation, but the pattern. Soldiers who failed too perfectly, skills that didn't match the results. Blackwood's hands were too calm, her gear too organized. Her face never showed panic, only the performance of panic. He turned to Master Sergeant Reed, who joined him at the rail. She's not a bad shot, Cross said quietly. Reed nodded. I know. Then why the show? Reed shook her head, eyes narrowing as she studied the line of trainees. That's the question, isn't it? Derek Lawson thought he already knew the answer. In his mind, Zara Blackwood was proof the system was broken. His brother Kevin had been a real soldier, a marksman who'd earned every accolade through sweat and blood until a helicopter crash took his life on foreign soil. Derek had come into this program with that weight, Kevin's ghost on his shoulders, his voice in his head, and here was this woman, fumbling her way through training, getting what he saw as special treatment. It made him furious. It made him dangerous. Every morning, Derek filmed her from the mess hall, from the range, from anywhere he could aim his phone. He called it documenting mediocrity. It wasn't documentation. It was surveillance, and it was growing. Zara felt it. The eyes, the lens, the constant hum of scrutiny. It wasn't just annoying. It was a problem. She'd spent 3 years perfecting invisibility, 3 years turning herself into someone no one noticed, no one asked about. Now she was becoming a spectacle, and spectacles drew the wrong kind of attention. That night, she sat alone on her bunk, the hum of the barracks settling into her bones. She cleaned her personal side-on, the one she wasn't supposed to have, the one from a life she'd buried. She moved methodically, as if the ritual could quiet the unease in her chest. It didn't, because in the quiet, she could hear the warning bell again, the one that had kept her alive in places where others hadn't been so lucky. The bell was louder now. By the 5th week, Derek had an audience. Not just the guys in his barracks, not just Emma Walsh and the handful of trainees who hung on his words online. His videos were being shared in military groups. His commentary, sharp, mocking, self-righteous, was drawing thousands of views. Day 26. Derek sat into his phone camera. Voice pitched low but loud enough for her to hear. Still can't hit the broadside of a barn, but don't worry. She's in advanced sniper training. The comments poured in. What a joke. No wonder the army's a mess. But she's someone's diversity hire. Zara didn't read the comments, but she felt them anyway. Every laugh, every whisper, every seed of doubt they planted in the minds of the people around her. The performance was starting to cost her something she hadn't expected. Not safety, not cover. Something harder to define. Something she thought she'd already given up. Her dignity. Captain Cross called Reed into his office after the latest range session. "I want a full background check on Blackwood," he said, sliding a file across the desk. Something about her isn't right. Reed opened the folder. The records looked fine, too fine. Duty stations listed, commendations noted, but here and there, gaps, months, sometimes years, that weren't accounted for. Classified assignments, the file said. The kind of classification that meant someone, somewhere, didn't want you looking closer. Reed closed the file slowly. "Sir," she said carefully, "do you think she's hiding something?" Cross didn't look up from his coffee. "I think," he said, "she already has been." That night, Derek Lawson uploaded another video, edited it himself, added slow-motion shots of Zara missing, spliced in his commentary, sharp as barbed wire. By morning, it had 15,000 views. By noon, 30,000. By the next day, 50,000. The knot in Zara's chest tightened. She didn't fear ridicule. She feared exposure, because the more people saw her face, the more chance someone, somewhere, would recognize her. Not as Zara Blackwood, but as someone else. Someone. They'd been hunting for 3 years, and she knew the hunt had already begun. What happens when hiding isn't enough? The orders came down late on Wednesday night training. Zara knew before they even briefed it that this would be the test. The deserted night stripped you down, made every mistake louder, every slip brighter in the green haze of night vision. The exercise was simple on paper. Locate and engage targets at unknown distances. Stay unseen. Avoid the roving patrols played by other trainees. Simple. But not for the worst marksman in Fort Sterling's history. Derek Lawson's voice carried through the prep room, louder than the clatter of scopes and cleaning rods. "Night ops separate the hunters from the hunted," he said. Phone raised. Live stream already rolling. Guess which one Blackwood's gonna be. Laughter, smirks, phones raised. Zara didn't respond. She just checked her gear. Her hands moved over the night vision scope like they'd done 1,000 times before. Because they had. She adjusted the focus without looking. She felt the weight, the balance, the tension of the strap. Captain Cross saw it. The way she handled that equipment wasn't basic familiarity. It was muscle memory. The desert swallowed the light whole. By the time they moved into the exercise area, the world was a grainy wash of green through night vision goggles. The terrain stretched for 2 miles. Jagged rocks, low brush, a darkness so thick you could almost taste it. Derek found his spot first, the highest rise in the sector. Just like his brother Kevin would have taught him, he crouched low, breath fogging his lens. Overwatch established. He reported into his throat mic. Voice calm, professional. He was good at this part, confident, in control. Then he scanned for her, for Zara, the struggling trainee who should have been stumbling somewhere. In the open, easy to track, easy to mock, but after a few minutes, she was gone. Not out of sight. Gone. Zara had slipped into the shadows like she'd been born there. Her movements looked clumsy. To anyone watching from a distance, she stumbled. She fumbled. She even clicked her illuminator a few times. Too many. To Derek, watching through his thermoscope, it looked like a mess. To anyone who actually understood fieldcraft, it was art. Every stumble took her deeper into concealment. Every mistake gathered information. And every step brought her closer to a position no one would expect. The first shot broke the night. A clean, perfect shot. The target, a steel silhouette at 600 meters, rang with the impact. Derek's head snapped toward the sound, eyes narrowing as he swung his scope to where she'd been. Empty. Nothing but scrub and rock. The second shot came from a different angle. Another. Perfect hit. And that's when Derek felt it. The first ripple of unease, because this wasn't luck. It wasn't some fluke moment where the worst shot in the class got lucky in the dark. This was skill, real, lethal skill. At the command post, Master Sergeant Reed stared at the thermal monitor. Hand frozen over the radio. The image showed heat. Signatures moving through the terrain. Some sloppy, some sharp. One of them moved like water. Cross. She said into the comms, voice low, urgent. Are you seeing this? Cross leaned over the monitor. He didn't need to ask who it was. That pattern, the way she shifted, the way she repositioned, wasn't something you learned in a few weeks. It was years of training, years of combat. Impossible, Cross muttered, almost to himself. According to her file, she's never seen combat. The monitor didn't lie. The shots didn't miss, and the ghost she was trying to bury had just whispered back into the world. For another hour, Zara moved like a shadow no one could catch. Hit after hit, target after target. Each one flawless, each one silent. By the time the exercise ended, the other trainees were dragging their feet. Exhausted, Zara wasn't even winded. She just stood at the assembly point, goggles pushed up, face calm. Derek stormed up to her, camera rolling. That was interesting shooting, Blackwood, he said, his voice sharp, biting, the tone of someone who just watched their narrative collapse. Funny how you went from missing barn doors to hitting shots most of us can't even dream of. Zara tilted her head, her mask still on. Maybe I see better in the dark, she said softly. The perfect answer. Light enough to sound innocent, heavy. Enough to make him doubt. But Cross wasn't doubting anymore. He was certain. And Reed? She saw it too. Every miss, every shake of the head, every sigh. It had all been an act. The question wasn't if Zara Blackwood was hiding something. The question was what, that night, as the barracks dimmed and the desert went quiet, Zara sat on her bunk, staring at the photograph hidden deep in her footlocker. 3 young soldiers in front of a helicopter, grinning like the world couldn't touch them. 2 of them dead, 1 of them still breathing. But for how long? Because tonight she'd crack the mask, and tomorrow someone would see the face underneath. How fast can one lie unravel when the world is watching? By sunrise, Derek Lawson's latest video was already climbing. 50,000 views, then 80, then 100. Clips of Zara missing shots, spliced with her sudden, perfect hits from the night exercise. Derek's voice ran over every frame, cutting sharp as a razor. 3 months of failure, then this? Explain that. The comment section was a war zone. Fraud. Cover-up. She shouldn't even be there. A few voices tried to defend her. Maybe she was finally improving. Maybe she was just nervous before. But the loudest voices weren't asking. They were accusing. Zara sat on the edge of her bunk, boots planted on the cold floor, phone in hand. She didn't have to scroll to know what they were saying. The room was quiet, but the echo of those words, those accusations, felt louder than any rifle shot she'd ever heard. Derek's videos weren't just mockery anymore. They were evidence. Evidence she didn't want anyone looking too closely at. Captain Cross called Master Sergeant Reed into his office that morning. The blinds were half drawn. A stack of printed screenshots sat on his desk. Red-inked notes scribbled in the margins. "Lawson's video," he said flatly. "How long before it becomes a security issue?" Reed didn't answer right away, because she already knew the truth. It already was. "Sir, he's not just posting training clips," she said. "He's posting locations, schedules, details." Cross rubbed his forehead, staring at the screen. "This isn't harassment anymore," he said. "It's surveillance. And the worst part? It was good surveillance. Too good." Zara knew it too. She felt the shift, the way Derek's obsession had turned from childish taunting into something methodical. She saw the camera now, always in the corner of her vision, the way he filmed her. Gear layout, the way he narrated her every move. To everyone else, it looked like a bitter trainee venting online to her. It looked like a targeting package. Derek thought he was exposing corruption. He thought his brother would have wanted him to Kevin Lawson, the real soldier, the older brother who'd been everything Derek wanted to be. Kevin had died in a helicopter crash 2 years ago. At least, that's what the family had been told. Derek had never gotten over it. He'd convinced himself that the army had changed, that they let the wrong people into elite programs now, and Zara? She became the face of that anger. Every shot she missed, every sigh, every shake of her head. Proof, in Derek's mind, that the system had failed. What Derek didn't know was that his camera wasn't just pulling in likes and comments. It was pulling in eyes. Eyes that had been searching for her for 3 long years. The morning after the night exercise, Zara felt it. That old feeling, the one she hadn't felt since Afghanistan. The one you get when someone, somewhere, has started hunting you again. She moved through the barracks in silence, tying her boots, sliding her locker shut. Every muscle in her body was calm, but her mind was racing. Every angle, every exit, every shadow. Derek's new video hit 150,000 views by lunch. It wasn't just on military forums anymore. It was being shared in political spaces, on pages where people argued about declining standards and lowered bars. Strangers were dissecting her life like they knew her. Some wanted her kicked out. Some wanted her punished. A few, the ones who mattered most, just wanted her found in the observation tower. Captain Cross watched her again. He saw the stillness, the calm, the way she always sat alone. He knew what that meant now. He didn't know the full story yet, but he knew this. Zara Blackwood wasn't failing. By accident, and sooner or later, that truth was going to explode that night. Zara opened the small case, hidden in the bottom of her footlocker. Underneath the regulation uniforms, underneath the Army-issued gloves and socks and gear, there it was. The life she buried, custom. Ammo, loaded to her exact specs. A scope adjustment tool for a rifle she'd sworn she'd never touch again. And a photograph. 3 soldiers standing in front of a helicopter, smiling like nothing could touch them. 2 of those faces were gone. Now, one was still alive, but how long? She cleaned the pieces of her sidearm slowly, not because it needed it, because the ritual kept her steady, because the sound of the brush against metal, the click of the slide, the faint smell of oil, it reminded her who she used to be, and what she might have to be again, because she could feel it. Derek's videos weren't just humiliating her anymore. They were pulling the wrong eyes toward her, eyes that remembered the name she'd left behind. And somewhere out there, someone whispered it again. Ghost. What happens when one upload crosses the line you can't come back from? It was 3:47 a.m. when Derek Lawson hit post. He hadn't slept. He hadn't even tried. The desk lamp in his barracks room burned harsh against his tired eyes as he spoke to his phone camera. Voice steady. Jaw tight. Every word sharp with conviction. What you're about to see will shock you. The video was different this time. No cheap jokes, no smirks. This wasn't a clip for laughs. This was an expose. He spliced together 3 months of footage. Every miss, every fumble, and then, with a dramatic cut, every perfect shot from the night exercise. 3 months of failure, Derek said to the lens. Then suddenly? Perfection? That's not training. That's deception. The edits were brutal, frame by frame. Zara missing, Zara hitting, and Derek narrating, laying out what he called proof. But it wasn't just training footage anymore. He showed her barracks. Assignment, her parking spot, her daily routines, details he thought were harmless. They weren't by sunrise. The video had been viewed 50,000 times. By noon, 100,000. By evening, 500,000. And in places far beyond Fort Sterling, people were watching. Not just bored veterans on Facebook. Not just angry voices in comment sections. Other eyes. The kind that waited, the kind that didn't forget, the kind that hunted. Master Sergeant Reed was the first to see the problem. She saw it before breakfast, scrolling her usual morning sweep of social media for anything that might embarrass the program. The video froze her blood. Not because of the mockery. She'd seen that before. Not even because of Derek's accusations. Because of the details, the angles, the locations, the times. It wasn't a video anymore. It was a map. She went straight to Captain Cross. He was already watching the footage on his office screen. Jaw set, eyes dark. This isn't harassment, Reed said flatly. Cross didn't look up. This, he said, voice low, is a security breach. He clicked pause on a frame that showed Zara's car. License plate clear in the shot. Lawson just handed anyone watching her exact routine, and if the wrong people are watching. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Zara didn't find the video on her own. Corporal Emma Walsh brought it to her. Emma hovered at her bunk like a kid holding bad news. You need to see this, she said softly, offering her phone. Zara took it. Watched the video in silence. Every second of her failures. Every second of her perfect shots, her face in thermal footage, her barracks door, her vehicle, her life stripped down, broadcast dissected. When the video ended, Zara didn't move. She just handed the phone back. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. How many views? Over 500,000. A long pause. Who shared it? Emma hesitated. Everyone, she whispered. The knot in Zara's chest, the one that had been tightening for weeks, finally pulled taut. The mask she'd built, the clumsy trainee, the worst shot in history. It was cracking, not just for Derek, not just for her classmates, for the world. And worse, for the people who'd been looking for her all this time, because somewhere far from Fort Sterling, old enemies saw the video. They didn't see the jokes. They didn't hear Derek's words. They saw the face, and they knew that face. They remembered it from the grainy drone footage, from the blurred photos after failed missions, from the bounty posters passed hand to hand in deserts halfway across the world. They remembered the name that came with it, Ghost. That evening, Zara cleaned her rifle again. Not the one the army had given her. The other one. The one she wasn't supposed to have. The one she hadn't touched in years. She ran the cloth over the metal, slow, methodical, as if each stroke could calm the storm she felt rising. But the truth pressed in on her, heavy and undeniable. Her cover was blown. The world would know soon, and worse, the people hunting her already did. Across the base, Derek sat on his bunk, phone buzzing with notifications, comments, shares, messages calling him a hero for exposing fraud. He grinned for a moment. He felt vindicated. For a moment, he felt like he was finally doing something his brother would be proud of. He didn't see the danger in what he'd done. Not yet, but Zara did. She could feel it, like the desert wind before a storm, and in the quiet of her barracks. She whispered the truth to herself. Words she hadn't said in years. They found me. What happens when the storm you've been outrunning finally catches you? The knock on Captain Cross's door came before dawn, urgent, hard. Master Sergeant Reed didn't wait for permission. She just stepped in, her face pale, a phone clutched. In her hand, they saw it. She said. Cross didn't ask who, because he already knew. It started with a classified alert, a ripple in the quiet stream of military comms. Certain words in Derek Lawson's expose, words like sniper, classified, perfect shots, had triggered filters buried deep in systems most soldiers didn't even know existed. Those filters didn't just watch American feeds. They watched the world. And when Derek's video hit 500,000 views, the ripples turned to waves. The first intercept came from a nameless intelligence office in D.C. An analyst drinking his third cup of coffee flagged a strange surge of chatter from networks in Eastern Europe. The second came hours later. Traffic. From North Africa, all pointing to one phrase buried in encrypted bursts. Ghost Cross sat in the briefing room, a file open in front of him, thick with redactions marked classified in bold, unforgiving letters. Every page told the same story. 3 years ago, a sniper codenamed Ghost of Cuner had dismantled terror networks across 3 continents. 47 confirmed kills, leaders, bomb makers, financiers, each shot precise, each mission devastating, and every bullet fired had carved her name deeper into the nightmares of the men she hunted. They had never stopped looking for her. And now, thanks to a video filmed for likes and outrage, they'd found her. In her barracks room, Zara felt the shift before anyone said a word. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a message. It was instinct. The same one that had saved her life a dozen times in deserts, jungles, and broken cities. Something in the air had changed. The silence wasn't safe anymore. By noon, Cross called her in. He shut the door, locked it, set his phone face down on the desk like even the glass might be listening. "Who are you?" he asked. Zara didn't answer, not right away. She stared at him, her face unreadable. The same stillness she'd carried for weeks, only now it felt heavier. Cross leaned forward. "I don't mean the name on your file. I mean the one the world is whispering about right now." The room stayed quiet. Finally, Zara spoke. "My name is Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez," she said softly. "But they know me as Ghost." The confession didn't come with drama. No tears, no breakdown. Just a quiet voice. The voice of someone who had been holding this weight too long. She told him about the missions, the ones so classified they didn't exist on paper. She told him about the night she pulled 12 people into her scope and pulled the trigger, one after another, to save a team pinned down under fire. She told him about the last mission, the one that went wrong, the one that turned her into a fugitive. "They ambushed us," she said, voice steady, but her hands tightened in her lap. "They knew our roots, our names, our families." Cross didn't speak. He didn't interrupt. "They shot down the helicopter that came for us," Zara continued. Her voice dipped. 8 good men died that night. One of those men had been Derek's brother. Cross exhaled slowly, like he was trying to release the weight of what he'd just heard. "Why hide?" he asked. Zara's gaze didn't waver. "Because the day after that mission, bounties went up, not just on me, on every survivor, and they didn't stop hunting us." She told him about the survivors who didn't make it, about the accidents that weren't accidents, about the quiet, patient killings that followed her across borders and oceans. Of the 12 who had walked out of Cuner alive, only 5 remained, now 4, now 3. "I thought if I became someone no one looked at, no one cared about." She paused. "They wouldn't find me." Cross closed the file. The black lines of redaction like scars across every page. Lawson's video. he said carefully. Just gave them everything they need. Location, schedule, even your face. Zara nodded once. She already knew. They'll come, and they did. The first sign wasn't gunfire. It was a van parked too long on the highway outside Fort Sterling. It was a drone that wasn't military issued. It was chatter intercepted by men in dark rooms who didn't even know where Nevada was on a map, but knew the word ghost by dusk. The reports came in. Enemy assets, trained, equipped, patient, were already moving into position. The hunt wasn't coming. It had arrived, in the barracks. Zara took the photograph out of her locker again. 3 soldiers, 3 smiles, 2 dead, 1 left. Her thumb brushed the edges. Her voice, when she spoke, was barely a whisper. It's starting. How do you prepare for a fight you never wanted? The day broke in eerie stillness, the kind of quiet that made even the birds stay away. Fort Sterling looked the same. Trucks rolled, cadets drilled, the flag snapped in the wind. But beneath it all, something had shifted. The intel channels buzzed with warnings. Unmarked vehicles spotted on dirt roads. A drone signal ghosting over the range before blinking out. Someone was coming, and they weren't coming to train. Derek Lawson didn't notice any of it. He was too busy scrolling through the tidal wave of attention his video had brought him. 2 million views now. Messages from journalists. Strangers calling him brave. For the first time since his brother's death, Derek felt useful. He thought he'd blown the lid off some military cover-up. He thought he was exposing weakness. He didn't know he'd just painted a target on the whole base. Zara knew. She felt it before anyone else said a word. It wasn't paranoia. It was instinct. The same instinct that had whispered to her in dusty villages and burned-out cities. The one that told her when to hold her breath and when to pull the trigger. That instinct now screamed one thing. They're here. Captain Cross pulled her into his office again. His jaw was tight. His coffee sat untouched. They're coming for you, he said. We have chatter confirming it. Foreign operatives, professionals. Zara didn't blink. I know. Cross leaned forward. Lawson's video gave them everything. This base isn't just a training site anymore. It's bait. Across the compound, Derek finally noticed the sayos. Tension. Troops moving faster, perimeter checks doubled. Radio traffic sharp, clipped. He cornered Corporal Emma Walsh in the mess hall. What's going on? Emma didn't answer. She just stared at him, her face pale. Then she said the words Derek wasn't ready to hear. It's because of your video. At first, he laughed, like she was joking. Then he saw her eyes, and the laugh died. Your brother, Emma said, her voice tight. Died on one of her missions. Derek froze. The room seemed to tilt under him. What? She told Cross everything, Emma said. The mission, the ambush, the bounty, everything. Derek's breath went shallow. She was there when he died, Emma continued softly. She was the one keeping them alive until help came, but the help never made it. The words hit like a rifle shot. Derek sat down hard, foam sliding from his hand. The truth cut deeper than any comment section ever could. He'd spent months destroying the life of the woman who'd been fighting to save his brother. That night, the warning came in. A patrol spotted movement beyond the fence. Men in the dark. 2. Skilled for local gangs. Too quiet for anything but trained killers. The base went to silent alert. Lights dimmed. Radios hissed with coded messages. The air thickened. Heavy. Tight. The way it feels just before the first shot in a firefight in the barracks. Zara pulled the case from her locker again. Not the training rifle. Not the worst shooter in the class weapon. The real one. The rifle she swore she buried. She assembled it piece by piece, hands steady, movements deliberate. No hesitation, because hesitation gets you killed. Down the hall, Derek stood frozen in the doorway, watching her. No camera, no phone. Just him. Is it true? He asked quietly. Zara didn't look up. About your brother? She said. Derek nodded once. Zara clicked the bolt into place. The sound sharp in the silent room. Yes. For a long time, Derek didn't speak. He didn't film. He didn't mock. He just stood there, the weight of everything he'd done pressing down on him. Finally, his voice cracked. I didn't know. Zara met his eyes, the first time she'd really looked at him since training began. I know, she said. Outside, the desert wind carried something new. The sound of tires on gravel, boots on sand, the whisper of a storm arriving. Zara chambered the first round, the motion smooth, practiced. She didn't flinch, didn't breathe hard, didn't look away from the window, because this time, hiding wouldn't save her. This time, there would be no more missing on purpose. This time, she would have to be ghost again. What do you become when there's nowhere left to run? The first shot came at 2:16 a.m. Not a warning shot, not a test. A clean, sharp crack in the darkness that split the night wide open. The bullet struck the perimeter wall, sparking against concrete. Then came the second and the third. By the fourth shot, Fort Sterling was no longer a training base. It was a battlefield. The alarms stayed silent. Not by accident, by design. Whoever was coming didn't want chaos. They wanted quiet. They wanted her. Zara was already awake. She hadn't slept. The rifle sat across her knees, fully assembled, the old weight settling against her palms like it had been waiting for this moment all along. She heard the shots before. Most on base even stirred, and she knew, this is it, she whispered. Captain Cross moved through the command post, voice sharp, issuing orders. Lock down the barracks. Sweep the outer sectors. No one moves alone. But even as he spoke, he knew. The enemy wasn't here for the trainees. They weren't here for the weapons cache. They weren't even here for intelligence. They were here for one person, and she was already moving. Zara slipped out of the barracks like a shadow breaking free. No hesitation, no fear. She didn't wear night vision. She didn't need it. Her eyes had learned long ago how to read darkness. Her feet found the ground without a sound, and for the first time in years, she wasn't pretending to be anyone else. She wasn't the worst shooter. She wasn't the washout. She wasn't Zara Blackwood. She was Ghost again. The first two men never saw her. They were moving low along the south fence, rifles raised, confident in their own stealth. Her shot dropped the first before his finger even touched his trigger. The second turned, too slow, and the next round found him. 2 shots, 2 bodies. No sound but the desert wind in the barracks. Derek Lawson sat frozen on his bunk, phone in his hands, notifications still buzzing. For the first time in months, he didn't hit record. He didn't even think about it. He just stared at the door, guilt pressing on him like a weight he couldn't lift. This was his fault. He'd drawn them here. He'd handed them her name, her face, her life. Outside, the fight spread, shadows clashing in the dark, muzzle flashes like lightning in the distance. But through it all, Zara moved steady, every step precise, every shot deliberate. The ghost they'd been hunting had come back to life, and she was hunting them instead. By 3:40 a.m., the desert was quiet again. Too quiet. The smell of gunpowder lingered in the cold air, sharp and bitter. Bodies lay scattered along the fence line. Some were foreign operatives, some weren't, because when people like this come, they don't come alone. They bring chaos, collateral, and sometimes that meant good men went down too. Derek found Captain Cross outside the command post, his face pale, his phone dead in his hand. She saved us, Derek said, voice cracking. It wasn't a question. It was the only truth left. Cross looked at him, saw the shame, the guilt, the regret that would hang on him forever, and said nothing. There was nothing to say. Zara stood at the edge of the range, rifle slung over her shoulder, staring out at the horizon. The sun was just beginning to rise, a thin line of gold against the black sky. Her face was calm, but her hands trembled. Not from fear, Not from exhaustion, but from the weight of what she'd become again. She hadn't wanted to be ghost. She hadn't wanted the kills, the blood, the whispers. She'd wanted quiet. She'd wanted to disappear. But when the storm came, she hadn't hidden. She hadn't run. She'd acted. Derek approached her slowly, like stepping toward a ledge. He didn't film. He didn't mock. He just stood there, voice low. "I'm sorry," he said. She looked at him, eyes tired, but steady. "I know," she whispered. They stood in silence as the sun crept higher, painting the desert in colors that felt almost too soft for what had just happened. The base would recover. The reports would be written. The videos would be deleted. But the truth would remain. The ghost was real, and she wasn't a myth anymore. She walked away then, rifle across her back, boots crunching softly against the dirt. She didn't say where she was going. She didn't need to, because ghosts don't say goodbye. They just fade, and in the softest morning light, a thought lingered. For Derek, for Cross, for anyone who would ever hear her story, sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.